Let's get into it today. We're talking about a series on what about your funeral, asking that question, realizing that as a person ponders, as it says in Ecclesiastes, ponders the end of life. I was just at a beautiful service this week for a dear precious friend whose husband had passed, and just a beautiful time to sit in that place, and contemplate the end of life. And the subset of, well, what does the end of my life look like? You can back all the way that up to, it's 2025, it's January, it's New Year's resolution time, revolution time. What about the end of the year? What about the end of the month? What about the end of this week? What about the end of this day? What about the end of this message? And so we've been working through that and asking questions. What about your funeral? Begins with, okay, what am I going to do there? What should that look like? We ask question number one, what about your soul, right? What about the state of your soul? Are you living as fully you, or are you blinded by the chaos of indignity from our smaller self, or are you dulled by the weaponized religion of our past ideas of conditional, exclusive, us-them religion? And you live this life, you get to your funeral, and you thought, well, it's all about where you go after you die, and so much focused on the not yet life that you didn't live the full life. Well, no, I'm living my full life. I took care of making sure I'm going not to hell first, and now I'm able to live my life. You're not able to live your life unless and until you're free from that weaponized, false, antichrist idea about the nature of God. And so we move on to that. Out of that kind of 1A, what about your funeral? Or what about your soul? We had kind of 1B, which is what about your sin? And my God, we talked a lot about that last week. It's so powerful. The power of the idea that we don't, in fact, need forgiveness from God. We need the surety that we have forgiveness of God from God, and of course how that works out, in the person of Christ versus the false religion built upon Christ. I don't want to go back to that, but we ended last week on number 3, what about your striving? And I do want to look into the Hebrew Scriptures this morning to the book of Ecclesiastes. If you can open up a place, maybe on, I don't know if you're watching on your phone, maybe you can get on your computer, or if you're watching on your computer, maybe get it on your phone, or if you're in the car, don't do anything if you're listening to this in the car. But Ecclesiastes, I want to look in 2 places here. First, Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, Ecclesiastes 11 first, and then we'll go to Ecclesiastes 3. But we ended on striving, and Ecclesiastes 11, I like this verse here because it's kind of encouraging to the striver. But it says, cast your bread, Ecclesiastes 11 verse 1, cast your bread in the Hebrew Scriptures upon the waters, for you shall find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 and also to 8, for thou know not what evil shall be upon the earth. That's a powerful thought there. But it says, if the clouds be full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. When it's time, right? And if the tree fall toward the north or south, in the place where it falleth, that shall it be. There's so much chance to life. We've talked about that a great deal. He that observeth the wind and pays to attention to try to read the tea leaves, they won't be active and sow. And he that regardeth the clouds shall not reap. But as you don't know the way of the Spirit, nor how a little baby takes shape in a mother's womb, so you don't know all the works of God that God maketh. You don't know all the seasons and all the goings on of the Spirit, he says, are too difficult to understand. So what's the conclusion? In the morning sow your seed, do your work. In the evening hold not your hand, do what you got to do. For you don't know which one of the things that you're doing shall prosper. And he says, or you don't know if both of the things or all of the things that you're doing shall prosper. And then it goes on into talking about the precious gift of just living life. So go from Ecclesiastes 11, if you would, to Ecclesiastes 3. And let me slow down here because I'm trying to do some new things today, and part of that is slowing down. So let's go to, let's stop. Let's stop. Let's go back to Ecclesiastes 11. Let me give you this info. Ecclesiastes 11. Let's break it down the way it should be broken down. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you shall find it after many days. There's just sometimes in life, talking about striving, that you just show up and do what you got to do. Keep putting it into the earth. Keep releasing it into the earth. Keep pushing the ball forward with the hope that there will be a return on all of this output. with the hope that there will be a like kind exchange for energy expended, energy recovered, and this is the hope. And this whole book, the preacher, right, Ecclesiastes, this whole book in the Hebrew Scriptures is about the wisdom of living life itself. And there's something about, the Amplified here. It says, cast your bread upon the surface of the water, be diligently active, make thoughtful decisions, for you will find it after many days. It just keep putting it out there. And then when the flow of the wind changes, when the flow of the tide changes, you'll find what you put out, you'll see it coming back, as they say, on every wave. And this is how we plow. This is how we work. This is how we attempt to exert our will, right, within the confines of what our free will may even look like. But in the confines of that, it's how we try to exert our will upon the earth, and we have to do it with hope. And so it's parenting, it's education, it's jobs, it's stepping out on a dream or an idea or a vision or marriage or building something, building a ministry, building a life. Really, we're talking about what is it like at your funeral, and part of getting to your funeral is having spent a lifetime casting bread upon the waters, putting it out. I got another idea. It's January 25. We're going to run it this. Why don't we try this? What if we come at it this way? I let that go. Let me pick that back up. The striving, right? There's no one can teach anybody how to succeed. We market that as, I'll give you success. I'll teach you how to succeed. No one can teach you how to succeed. Why? Because there's a flow to it, and there's a wind to it, and there's a season to it, and there's movements and upper currents and lower currents and all of these things. I can teach you how to succeed. No, you can teach me how to strive. You can't alter the landscape, you can't alter the season, you can't alter the flow of the winds, but you can teach how to discern it, how to flow with it, how to maneuver within those shifting structures. And this is what this is about here. So when we talk about our funeral, we're talking about, what about our striving? It's like, will I die a success? I don't know if you'll die a success. I suspect you'll die having had a series of spread out successes, right? I've had, I'm the poster child of failed attempt. I'm a home run leader and the strikeout king. I mean, that's it. And somebody said, well, how did this go? How did that go? Well, it flared up. It was beautiful, and then it wasn't beautiful, and then, boy, that really took off, and that seems to still be going, and that kind of fell away, and boy, that had a big dream there. And somebody said, well, how do you do that? Because you keep on putting it out. You keep on releasing it into the earth in hopes that, we do this all in hope that there will be a response. We put out the call and hope for the echo. Hello. And what are we hoping for? Hello, 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 hello. And this is what this verse is about. It's about striving. It's about generosity. It's about having multiple fishing lines in the water. You got this going, you got no bite, but you might have a little nibble over here, but boy, you just drug that one in, the bait was gone. You had to rebait that. That is the striving of life, and that's what this verse is about here. Give a portion to 7 and also to 8, for you know not what evil shall be upon the world. Now he's talking about using generosity as a hedge upon the unpredictability of life, right? Being generous. Misfortune can occur. I mean, you can be in the most beautiful place. Asheville, Western North Carolina is Connie and I's kind of dream home. We always thought, well, not now because that's not our life season, but there could be a day where we retire there. And boy, I'd like to spend it's almost heaven. West Virginia, the Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. That's life is old there, right? So that's always been a dream of ours, and it's been this kind of haven of, well, we don't really get a lot of the outer bands of storms, and we don't really get too much. And my God, the place that was kind of in the safety of the when the billows of life are raging, that whole Western North Carolina just flooded out in one day. So he's talking about now your striving, your generosity coming together to try to form some form of hedge against the unpredictability of the misfortunes of life. And so this is about not succeeding. The markets, they can be forecasted, but not predicted, right? You can you can have a good plan and work a good plan, and I think you should work a good plan. But then you have to realize that in life there are certain times then the best laid plans just come to naught. And so someone said, well, I made all the plans and it didn't succeed. I'm not sure success is in our jurisdiction. The striving is what is in our jurisdiction. And when you say, what about my funeral? What about where I've succeeded and failed? I don't know what that's going to look like, but my God, what you can be in charge of by the end of this year, the end of this month, the end of this week, the end of this day, the end of this message, is your striving to that end. If the clouds are full of rain, if it's ready, it's ready. I like that. If the clouds are full of rain, then they empty themselves, It's like that old tracker, that Boy Scout tracker. He was out there and he had old Fred, and Fred's the best tracker in the whole thing. And they were walking on trail and they stopped right there, and the lead man called Fred up and said, "Fred, what's this here?" And there's a pile of stuff on the ground. And Fred said, "Well, it looks like dog doo." And Fred got down and he sniffed it. He goes, "Yeah, it smells like dog doo-doo." And he got down and he tasted it. It tastes like dog doo-doo. Fred stood up and said, "Good thing we didn't step in it." Well, yeah, that is a good thing we didn't step in it. So I don't even know what got. Some things are so obvious, right? That they need no further explanation. The Jeffersonian phrase is self-evident, right? I don't need to further elaborate. When's the cloud going to empty? When it's full of rain. Well, how do you fix it? You can't fix it. You can't advance it. You can't make it full of rain. You can't hasten the rain. All you can do is put your bread out on the water. Put your striving and your generosity out together, knowing that when it's full, that's when it's going to empty. When the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And guess what? The tree has fallen. You can't control which way the tree falls. Sometimes the tree falls this way. Sometimes the tree falls that way, right? You can't control it, right? Sometimes it falls on the road and you can't get to work. Sometimes it fell on the fence and they got to get their backyard redone. There are certain things you cannot control in life. And somebody said, "Wow, I just said I was going to have 100% on-time attendance at my job." But you can't control which way the tree falls. But our lives together of our striving, our lives taken together on the whole, right? Think about Abraham, right? What does it say? Genesis 24, I believe it is. "And it came to pass that Abraham died and was buried in a good old age, and the Lord had blessed him in all things." Blessed him in all things? Did you look back at the wars and his son trying to kill his other son and the strife with his blessed him in all things? What he's saying is, well, there were seasons of great abundance and seasons of great trial and days of great joy and days of great sorrow. But on the whole, he could look back over his shoulder and said, God is good. That's what we're trying to get to, right? We're trying to get to our funeral where you're saying I never tree didn't get in my way or never had a dry season. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you put together your striving, you put together your generosity, and sometimes the tree fell in the right way and sometimes the tree fell in the wrong way. But when we get to the funeral, the end of the life, the end of the year, the end of the week, the month, the week, that we get there and we say, man, God has been good in the middle of it all. Okay, I hope you're tracking now with what I'm saying. So and he that's always paying attention to what they say, right? Verse 4, "He that observeth the wind shall not sow." Well, I don't know, is this a good day or not? Maybe this, might not be a thing. Well, they're saying in a couple of days, My dad and I always joke, Pop and I always joke about the Weather Channel. I don't know if you've seen the guys on the Don't Grow Up to Be Your Parents or whatever it is, all the Weather Channel, and the guy's like, well, the Weather Channel says, as dew point says it's 14%. No, it looks like 19% to me. Well, unless you got a live-in Weather Channel, you just don't know what's going to happen. I think about here, we just got snow here in North Georgia a couple of weeks ago, and we got the kind of good snow, like the non-crazy, the city didn't shut down, the kids on the school bus didn't have to sleep in the Shoney's, it wasn't the crazy snow, but it hung around for a week. As a matter of fact, there's still snow on the ground, and they say we're getting snow some more. And so my kids, they're 17 and 20. Maybe not both of them were as excited. One of them was particularly excited about. And we were getting live updates every 3 minutes. They're 43% chance. They cut it off. It's supposed to be Friday and Saturday. No, it's not going to be Friday and Saturday. And you know what? The truth of the matter is, when it snows, it'll snow. And if it doesn't snow, it doesn't snow. But part of the thing is, we're trying to read the tea leaves and figure it out. That's part of the joy of life. You cannot control the snowing of the snow, but you can control the striving inside that world, right? And so You don't know the way of the Spirit. You don't know, like watching fish in the water in a school. They're going this way and they just dart that way and dart that way. You don't know any of that kind of stuff. You don't know where the flow is or how the bones grow in the womb. And so you don't know all the things that are happening, that are going to happen, the works that God is making. So what do? In the morning, get up and sow your seed. In the evening, do what you have to do. Why? Because you don't know if it's your morning striving that's going to yield the fruit or your evening striving that you're going to yield the fruit. You don't know if it's fishing line 1 that's going to do it or fishing line 4 that's going to do it. You don't know if you're going to get a hit on both lines and be trying to reel in one hand, mama, come grab. You don't know. You don't know which one will prosper. You don't know if either will prosper. You don't know if both will prosper. All you can do is the striving. And that is the wisdom of the preacher. That is the wisdom of the preacher. Truly, the light is sweet. Oh, I love this verse 7. Truly, the light is sweet, and a pleasant thing for the eyes to behold the sun. I need to stop there. So I have these glasses, and boy, I'm about time for some new glasses. I can tell when I do my How Can I Help sessions, and sometimes I'm talking to the person on the screen, and sometimes, depending on where my glasses are, it's like they're totally blurry. Oh, there you are. So that's, the trifocals or whatever it is. Don't eat me, giant eye. 5 points, bonus points if you get that reference in the comments. But truly the light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun. One of the things I do, I take off my glasses to see with my eyes while I can see. I want to see a long time. I want to have bright eyes. There's all sorts of surgeries and things like that. And I don't know. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I won't. But one of the things I like to do is see with my natural eyes. I like just sometimes when my kids or Connie is close, or the dog, I'll take off. I still like to look at the dog and see his little paintbrush hairs where God has just paintbrushed him in, the little brush strokes. You can see the brushes strokes in the acrylic paint on, and I just like to look at him. I look out, I love stars. I love, astronomy and astrology and, getting my horoscopes and all those kind of things. I don't know if they're good. If they work, they work. I don't know. But I do love looking at the stars, and I got me a little app, and I feel like I'm a grandpa before my time, but maybe I'm not a grandpa. Maybe I'm just into stuff. I don't know. This is my weather channel. But every night I'm like, oh my gosh, there's Mars over there. And look, Mars is easy. Mars is easy because it's the red planet. If you look up, looks like a little copper penny up there. You're like, well, there's Mars right there. And I pull out my little app and say, that's Mars. Oh, Venus is over here. And Jupiter's back over there. And I mean, I absolutely love this. And I'll tell you, I don't mind telling you, there's 2 Marses up there now. When I look up with my naked eye, there's Mars and there's a little bitty side Mars right next to Mars. This starting to blur up like a little Mars moon. I don't know. See, I might have discovered Mars's moon, but I like to look at it with my eyes. And what he's saying here is life itself, while you still have eyes to see, and it doesn't mean literal eyes and literal seeing, but it means while you're still alive, life, if you still feel the warmth of the sun, the warmth of the light of life on you, it is a beautiful gift. And so this is what this entire verse from the Hebrews is, what this is about. We're talking about your funeral, right? Well, you're living your life. Behold, verse 8, if a man live many years and rejoice in them, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. And all that cometh is vanity. And so I used to hate that scripture because it's like, that comes against my faith. There's no supposed to be dark days and all that other kind of stuff. And I agree with that. There are other verses that say the darkest day of your life will be as the darkest your life will ever get is what it looks like at noon. I love that promise. I love to go through life believing for that type of good to come. But I can also acknowledge now at 51 that I can look back and say, well, there have been some dark days, but I still rejoice in my life. Verse 9, rejoice, O young man, in thy youth. Let thy heart cheer in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. But know this, that for all these things God shall bring thee into judgment. Boy, we were doing all right, and then we got into weaponized religion, and boy, that's just yucky. Somebody said, what do you mean? You don't like that verse there? No, I don't like that verse there. I don't expect the Hebrew scriptures, the Muslim scriptures, the Christian scriptures, or any other scriptures to fully reveal the truth of God. All I know is if you overlay this with what we know to be true about Christ, Christ showed us none of that type of punishing judgment in his earthly ministry. Therefore, remove sorrow from thy heart, and put away evil from thy flesh, for childhood and youth are vanity. It doesn't mean that they're vanity in the sense of they're pointless. It means that they are here, and then Kaiser Soze, those seasons are gone. Ecclesiastes 3. This is the new me, taking my time. How am I doing? You doing okay? I'm doing okay. We all right? I'm okay. You're okay? Or as they say in Brooklyn, I'm all right. How you doing? Ecclesiastes 3. We're moving on to see to question 4. Question 3, what about your striving? Pairs perfectly, right? It's like I'm doing a wine pairing, a sommelier here. It pairs perfectly. Question 3, what about your striving? Pairs perfectly with question 4, what about your season? Because your striving and your season are inextricably connected. Verse 1, you've heard this. You know it's not the yard birds. Who is this? To everything there is a season, turn. The birds, the yard birds, yard birds. You're not getting any yard bird in Georgia. Not right now. They banned it. Did you see that? They banned poultry in Georgia this morning, or yesterday, whatever it is. Birds got the flute. To everything, there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Now, I'll tell you how things get fixed in the mind, right? Ecclesiastes 12, the words of your teacher getting fixed in your mind, as it says in Ecclesiastes, the collected sayings of one shepherd. I love that scripture. I'll tell you from my spiritual father, my mentor, the person that trained me, the people that trained me, I'll give you a quote, and I'll give it to you exactly as it was. And I'm saying exactly, I'll give it to you as I remember it. So how can you do that? Well, it's from about 25 or 30 years ago, and because it was said 100 times. The key to avoiding frustration and the temptation to quit is to remember that with God, there is a due season and an appointed time for everything. Whew. The key to avoiding frustration and the temptation to quit is to remember that with God, there is a due season and an appointed time for everything. I'll say it to you again. The key to avoiding frustration and the temptation to quit, as my son always tells me, 99% of gamblers quit right before they're going to get that big win. So, okay, I'll keep going, son. Thanks for the advice. The key to avoiding frustration and the temptation to quit is to remember that with God, there is a due season and an appointed time for everything. Verse 1, to everything there is a season, and there is a time to every purpose under heaven. Now, there's a lot to that we've had to change in the sense, or update, grow into in the sense of the Omega View. I don't know if you know, some of you new timers here, you're not aware of our series before this on favor, forgiveness, and the flow. I am going to resume that after we get through What About Your Funeral, and I had fully planned on being done with What About Your Funeral, in the next week or so. But I'm taking my time, and I'm trying to build this inner world for you so that it lasts longer than just this message, just the preaching of the series. But I am going to get back to the flow. And so I will tell you this, the key to avoiding frustration and the temptation to quit is to remember that with God, there's a due season, appointed time for everything. You should not hear that in our old witchcraft ways of, whatever we had, faith camp or whatever it is, where there's a formula to it. Because how I heard that when I was 20 years old was just keep doing what you're doing and eventually it'll happen for you. And that is not acknowledging the way of the Spirit. That is not acknowledging the flow. There are things that we do that we do, and we say, well, it's just not my season yet. Yeah, but just not my season yet is not you saying the thing I want is the thing I'm going to make happen, and I'm going to make that happen while ignoring the flow and the rhythms of the Spirit and the season of my life. It doesn't mean that. It does not mean that, well, you haven't got your album yet, you didn't get your NBA call yet, your agent hasn't called and said they want you, but the Knicks want you. They want you. Look, all I know is I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give into the temptation to quit, and I'm not going to get frustration because I know with God, there's a due season for me to be on the Knicks. my brother, you're 58. It's not going to happen. The Knicks are not going to call. Don't you come against my faith. I'm not going to quit. I know there's a due season for me to be on the Knicks. That's not what this scripture means. That's not what the teaching means. That's not what my spiritual father was teaching. He was not teaching that house you drive by and point to, it's not your house yet. And yeah, there's a family there. And yeah, somebody spent 5 years building it. And yeah, they're living there now. But the key to avoiding frustration, the temptation to quit, is to realize that it's only a matter of when the season comes that's my house. That is destructive. That stops us from living a full life because we get into Harry Potter, witchcraft, Zendetta, what is it, Mike? Zendetta Manetta, or whatever it is. We get into that, and we're not living at all. I know my season is coming. I know my season is coming. Your season is coming, but you cannot dictate what that season is. Well, if I can't control what my season is, if I can't control the seasons of flourishing and the seasons of dry, if I can't control that, what do? We can control the striving. We can't control the success or the season, but we can be sensitive to it, and we can learn to operate and flow within it. So to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. I hope you're hearing what I'm teaching today. There's a time to be born. Well, we know that, and a time to die, right? What do they say? You got this day and that. All you have control over is the dash. I like that. A time to be born, a time to die. There's a time to plant, put it in the ground, a time to pull it out of the ground. A time to kill and a time to heal. Boy. There's a time of breaking down, a time of building up. I don't know how much of this is necessarily active for us. It doesn't matter what the writer thought. It's what we now know as we look at these scriptures through the prism of the person of Christ. We can see the full color. We're no longer blinded by the written word. It doesn't give us a little insight into God and take away insight after, but because we're dealing with the living word. And so we look at this and we say, well, killing and healing, breaking down and building up. All of these times are real. There's a time of destruction and a time of coming back together. Not that we will be on a time going out to destroy everything, and then we will be on a time to go out and healing everything. But there are times in life of great destruction, times in life of great tearing down and building up, taking apart and putting together. A time to break down, a time to build up. You will encounter those seasons in life. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. What you'll be surprised with is that you take those, the time to weep and the time to laugh, the time to mourn and the time to dance. You actually, those don't come out of the fountain, out of the ice cream thing as here's the time to weep and then I come over here, here's the time to dance. They actually come out swirled because the weeping time, the mourning time, the laughing time, and the dancing time, they're all intertwined together. I mean, that's the beauty of life. There's a time to cast stones. A time to gather stones. There's a time to throw, time to bring them all back in, right? Time to hit all the golf balls and time to go sweep them all back up and bring them back to the range. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Well, we've talked about this. Sometimes relationships and intimacy and friendships and things like that, they burn hot, and other times they burn cold. There's a time to get, a time to lose. We'll have getting time and losing time in our life. We'll have keeping time and casting away time in our life. We'll have tearing time and mending time in our life. We'll have times where we have a lot to say and times when I doubt I ought to speak. Times of love, times of hate. We'll see those times. Times of war, times of peace. We are seeing those times. And then again, he asked the question, what profit hath he that worketh and wherein he laboreth? So what he's trying to say here is he's telling you in one part of Ecclesiastes, man, strive and strive and strive and put it out there and put it out there. But then he's also recognizing that all that striving together, it can't dictate to the seasons. It can only be ready to return and to flow when the season is right. This is the humility of life. So what will your life look like? What will your funeral look like? The end of the year, the end of the month, the end of the week, the end of the day, the end of the message. What will it look like? It's going to look like a combination of how your striving interacted with your season. And that is a beautiful gift. Let's go over again to the Hebrew Scriptures, to the book of Psalms. Psalm 23, the 23rd Psalm, if you will. Psalm 23. This is me taking my time. Some people say, I'm getting a lot out of it. You just talk too much. You talk too fast. Take your time. I'm taking my time. when I'm putting it out in chunks, people say, my God, slow down, take your time, you're going too fast. Then I start taking my time and putting it out. Someone say, my God, get to the point. Well, pick a lane, I guess. What did I tell you to go? Psalm 20? I meant 27. Sorry, Psalm 27, verse 13. Familiar scripture to some of you. If you're not familiar with the Hebrew scriptures, this might be, foreign to you, but it's a powerful verse. Verse 13, I had fainted, Psalm 27, verse 13. I had fainted, or I had given up, or I had just fallen dead in battle, right? It was a Tuesday. I don't know the date. I had fainted, unless I would have given up. I would have cashed it in, right? Frank Sinatra. I would have said, "That's it. That's life. That's it. Cash me out. I'm done." I would have fainted. I would have given up, unless, or if I hadn't. I would have fainted if I hadn't believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Well, I'd have chucked it all. I said, that's it. I'd have mucked my cards. I'm done. That's it. I'm out of here on this. I can't deal with this anymore. What kept you going? Well, I believed, regardless of how my striving or having strove did, back on Tuesday, I guess. Regardless of how that was going, how it had crashed. Man, with the way some of my strivings have crashed to the ground, like Calliope just smashing everywhere, it's brutal. And I said, God, this is terrible. I can't do this anymore. I would have chucked it all. Or how the season hit, and man, it was green one day, and then it was dry as a bone, and it was a flowing river, and then it was shut down. I would have done that. I would have said, well, I'm not doing this anymore. This is too painful. What keeps you going? Because I believe to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Now, one of the things you know from the church here, the Omega View, and this might be difficult for you, and I understand that. If you're new here, you say, I've not heard this before. Well, let me help you out. As they say when they're feeding, and you're feeding a little baby, you're feeding some baby food or whatever, and sometimes the baby just spits, and you just scrape it up on the little chin, and you put it back in. This might be difficult to hear. Just because you never heard it before doesn't mean it's not true. Well, it crashes against all my religious conditioning of what I've been told about God. Yeah, but in your knower, let me give you what you know in your knower. And you know what you know in your knower long before your learner got anything. God is not actively good. God is good in the sense of the character and nature of God. We can make that argument about love. But God isn't, when we say God is good, we don't mean God is actively good. We mean God is characteristically good. But God does not dole out or approve or sign off on or nod and point to and release good. Now, God is goodness is a better way to think of it. It's not I'm believing for God after I've prayed and prayed and prayed, and finally he says, fine, just give it to her. That's not how this works. But believing to see the goodness of God in the land of the living is not believing, hoping you'll get to the place where God will say, all right, you're ready, now you can have it. That's not it. It's that this goodness exists. Going back to the favor series. It feels targeted, yet it seems random. It feels personal, which means I carry a responsibility to it. But when we say God is good, what we're doing is acknowledging the good things in our life that have come, but we are not arrogantly assuming that they have come to us by either our virtue, our behavior, our chosenness, our specialness, or our some sort of compliance. Why? Because when we say, I was really believing God for a parking space so that I didn't have to walk a long way at Costco, and God, thank you, you opened that up. When we think that your faith got God to go, yeah, open up space 6, and Gabriel says, space 6. You know, why? Because somewhere over in another part of the world, they're praying, God, don't let the bomb hit my house tonight. And it's like, oh, the bomb hit the house. You mean God approved your parking space at Costco, but didn't sign off on the bomb at the house? No. The goodness that we're talking about here is in the universe. It's in the cosmos. It's God's goodness. And there's nothing wrong with believing to see that goodness. Well, I don't know if it does any good. Well, it certainly doesn't do any bad, but that is really all the power we have. Our striving, our season, and our belief to see the goodness. That even if the bomb hit the house, if we stand out in the rubble and go, my God, I believe that out of this there will be rebuilding. I would have fainted if I had seen just the dark days of my life. But when I see the dark days of my life, where my life and my ministry or my work or my businesses or my ideas or my relationships have crashed to the ground and I've had to restart, and I say, man, I'm not doing this again. If all it is Sisyphus and pushing it up the hill and it comes back down, how can I do that? Well, we would faint if we just accepted, well, there's nothing to do here. But we, in the middle of our striving, in the middle of our season, the one thing we push back on with everything is our belief to see the goodness of God. Where? In the land of the living. Now you add in the Omega view to that, you add in, the revelation of the person of Christ. Not only are you believing to see the goodness, but as I tell my kids in our daily devotions, go out and be the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Why? Because there's a lot of people believing to see something from God, and you could be that very goodness from God walking into their lives. Now we're in something that more resembles true religion instead of the weaponized version that was co-opted and sold to us. So they're striving. So one of the things I want you to get to, which did I send you guys a link? So I'm putting in the chat now a link to a series. It's called The Daily Dozen. This is part 6 of The Daily Dozen. I taught on 12 things people can pray every day. This is in another lifetime, one truly of toil and blood. I wore a younger man's clothes. But from this old time in my life, but it's still available. And this, I was teaching something, for a long time, and I see it differently, but there's still some good stuff there. So this is the Daily Dozen, 6, Psalm 91. But Psalm 91, verse 16, ends with this idea of, with long life, God, you'll satisfy us and show us your salvation. Too much to get into now. But when I taught that prayer, I always taught that Psalm 91, verse 16, in conjunction with this Psalm 27:13. Lord, I thank you that in my long life, length of days, peace, all the things we get there, I believe to see your goodness in the land of the living. I'm in the land of the living, and I believe to see that goodness wherever it's available in that land of the living. Or so are you asking God for that? Well, I used to think it was Grandpa on the throne, and then if I wrote just right on my prayer request and had my offering just right, and I did the tithe plus this, and I had stretched my hands that way, and I had said it enough times that sometime God would go, yeah, the formula's close enough, do it. And now I realize that that's a false idea. But it has not stopped me from purposing to believe, to see, and to be the embodiment of that goodness. And it starts with acknowledging, my God, there's a lot of goodness in my life here. There's a lot that I'm believing to see, but there's a lot that I'm failing to see of the goodness that's already in my life. Starting with that I'm standing up talking to you in my sound mind, and I can pretty much see you mostly. There's 2 of you on that one side, but this is, But here's the combination. I believe to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, in my long, satisfying life. And how do I believe to see it? Moment by moment. That's those sec, I'll be there in a sec, right? An actual measure of time, right? A nanosecond. I believe to see the goodness moment by moment. I believe to see the goodness day by day. This is the prayer. Moment by moment, day by day, week by week, month by month, lustrum by lustrum. It's 5 years, right? Moment by moment, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, lustrum by lustrum, every 5-year interval, decade by decade, 10-year interval. But I always ended it with this: life season by life season. I believe to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, moment by moment, swinging on notes like Tarzan with the vine, right? I'm swinging moment to moment, believing to see. Day to day, week to week, vine to vine, month to month, year to year. Lustrum, it's an old word. I think it's a Roman word. Lustrum, a 5-year period. Lustra, I think, is the plural. 5 years by 5 years over 5 years, I believe to see. Decade over decade, I believe to see. Why? Because I'd crash out and faint if I didn't believe to see it. Decade by decade, and here it is now, life season by life season. I believe to see the goodness of the Lord. So let's talk about these seasons. Let's talk about question 3. We talk about the seasons. What did Stevie say? Right? Can I sail through the changing ocean tide? Can I handle the seasons of my life? Right? Seasons of my life. What did Dolores say, right? Oh, my life is changing every day in every possible way. Acknowledging seasons in life is acknowledging the motion of life. That life is not static, and that life can be on one dimension. The seasons exist across dimensions. You can be in a set season in one dimension of your life and a completely different season in another dimension of your life. And not only that, but your season is not my season. There are individual seasons within the shared seasons. So we could be at a time of war when you're in one season of your life, and be in a time of war when I'm in another season of my life, or we could be in a time of war while somebody else is in a time of peace. And so this now, all of these cross currents create this flow to life, and it's the flow ultimately that we want to be sensitive to. So what about the seasons of my life? I have 4 thoughts on seasons because I'm a new person and I'm trying to talk slower. I want to talk slower. That's Howie Mandel. Talk better, I think it was. So let me give you these. I'll just do the first one tonight, or today, whatever. Thought A, right, on the seasons of life. I've got 4 thoughts. We'll talk about this. I trust you've gotten something out of this walk through the roses here. Thought A on seasons, I want to ask you, what about your season? I want to ask you this. Where are you in the time of life? Where are you in the time of life? When you think about a lifetime and you think about seasons, where are you in the time of life? This is thought A. Question 3, what about your season? 3A is... what about your time of life? A lifetime, if you think of it, is spring, summer, winter, or spring, summer, fall, and winter. Kind and I were talking about it this morning. These used to be about 15 to 20 year seasons. Spring was 15 to 20 years. By the time you got 20, there was a time, man, you had kids, you had this, you had that, you were having babies. I mean, those things have changed. It's so funny because I was thinking about my grandparents. My grandfather died in 1989, and he died at 69. But the lifespan for a male at that time was 74. So 69 today, you're about 15, 17 years of schedule. So you get in the high 70s or whatever. But back then, he got out of here a little early. He was working days. He went to nights. He just got moved to the night shift a little earlier, right? But I look back, and you know this, you look back at your grandparents. I mean, I look back at this picture of my grandmother, and she's this old lady, and I'm like, my God, look at that's grandma there. But she was 49. How did 49 back in 1978, 49 look like 65 back then? It's just a different time. That's what they dressed old. They did. Yeah, but it was, now, it could have been the Salems, right? It could have been that. It could have been the Budweiser. I'll give you that. Could have been a lot of hard miles. Could have been coming out of those Depression-era years, whatever it is. But old looked older back then. 70 really is the new 50. You know, I mean, I am 3 years older than I was when I moved in with my grandmother at age 5. And you see the picture and you go, how in the world? She's 49, Mike, you're going to be 52. And I mean, she had a little leather soft pack, little smoky thing with the little lighter and this and that. But I mean, she was old, and the pants were old and the things were old. And she lived another 30-something years on to that, and she was old. I look at my grandmother at 80, and I think of her, and I look at my father coming up here in a couple of months here, or a couple of weeks here being 80, and those are two different 80s. Well, seasons of life. The season used to be 15 to 20 years for spring, 15 to 20 years, for summer, 15 to 20 years for fall, and then, winter could be, maybe short. They're average times. Now, seasons are different. A season now, a spring is about, 20 to 25 years you're in spring, and then you got 20 to 25 years for summer, 20 to 25 years for fall, and then, and maybe we get all those up. In the Bible, the Hebrew Scriptures talk about Moses living to 120 years. Can you imagine 30-year time of life seasons, a 30-year spring, a 30-year summer, a 30-year fall, a 30-year winter? I mean, this is a beautiful idea. But the spring, the summer, the fall, and the winter, we are living that time of life. Now, there's other seasons within that. There are seasons within your spring, seasons within your summer, seasons within your fall, seasons within your winter. But I want you to think about where you are in that time. What is spring? The springtime of life is all new. It's all firsts. Everything is bursting light, bursting color. And there's a romance to the springtime of life that, is just... And the problem is, you don't even realize it when you're in it. You don't realize how cool a Halloween is, or how cool a birthday is, or how cool a Christmas is. I mean, you kind of know. That's what's so beautiful when you get into another season of life, you get into an autumn of life, and you're looking back, like I got my little niece. Now, I got nieces and nephews who are my kids' ages, my older sister has, and then I got my other sister, she's just got little babies coming along, and a 5-year-old at Christmas, my God, in spring, you know about Santa Claus, but man, when you're tracking Santa on the app, knowing where Santa is, feeding all the reindeer, there's a magic to that is glorious. And you're not really cognizant of months. You're not really cognizant. You just step outside in the springtime of life. You just know there was one day I went out in Florida and I stood outside and it was nice and cool outside. And I didn't know there was a change in the weather. I didn't know that. I just remember going, and then you smell the fireplace. You say, what's happening here? You're not even aware of it. It's all brand new. And then, wow, the flowers are back again. I mean, there's these cycles in springtime where everything is new. It's first dances and first loves and first heartbreaks and camps and sleepovers and just all of that stuff, in life and school. And I mean, I remember, going to school, I was so lost all the time. I'm still lost all the time. I don't know I don't know if they had the diagnosis back then, but I mean, just everything new, and we're going now. We're taking a nap, and I'm looking around. And we're going outside now. We're on the thing. Nobody ever sat me down. I'm like Forrest, right? Nobody ever sat me down. This is the bus to school, son. I didn't know what was going on. I just went. They just marched me out to the thing one day and said, "Go in that building," and I went in that building, and that's all I knew. And man, we were singing songs and marching, and let's tell the world about colors. They're all around. You got red on the stop signs, green on the trees, blue in the skies and seas. I mean, this is wild, and we romanticize that because that's an epic season of life. And that goes, right? Then you hit the summer of life. The long days for working and building. Things are green and strong. The heat of it. But it's a good sweat. You feel like there are times of honest work and honest reward. Doesn't mean there's not trouble. But maybe it doesn't get to you as much. Maybe you come back a little better from the setbacks because you're moving on from the silliness of spring because you've been around, but now you're ready to get out and build and get out and see and get out and adventure and get out and do. Why? Because there was so much new in your little bitty circle of spring, but now that's old now, right? It's a circle game, right? It's just, I've been around this 16 seasons around the circles. I'm ready to see what else is out there. And so now we move into the summer of life. It's very interesting now. Connie and I, we have our two children. One is kind of winding down over these next couple years, the spring of life, and the other one is winding up into the summer of life. These are things I didn't even recognize when they were happening to me, but talking to my daughter and saying, where was I at 20? I was entering into starting the summer of life. Where was I at 17? My God, I was just winding out the spring of life. And you start to get frustrated with things, and the things that were cool aren't so cool, and the big things are not so cool, and it's just a handful of people, and you're kind of weeding out, and you don't have a lot of time for a certain type of mess, and because what are you doing? You're closing a season of life, and these are beautiful. Got 3 minutes here. Then we come to the autumn and fall of life. Connie and I just now dipping our toes in. And guess what? There's a newness of color in autumn and fall that you didn't really pay attention to when you were younger. I don't know what it is about getting older, but you start noticing flowers you didn't notice before, noticing things. You start to act like that in my yard. I mean, you're having all these weird thoughts. There's this refreshing cool snap where it's not that intense heat from that summertime. You're getting a little reprieve from it, and you're starting to re-engage with the springtime of your life, and it's not till the fall of your life that you start to realize how magical the spring and the summer were. But now as you start to re-engage and want to feel that little kiddishness again and want to feel that sense of play again, you're engaging in this dimension of wisdom that you just didn't have your first time around. And it's in the autumn of life that you get the real appreciation. You get this a little bit in summer. I listen to my daughter, who's starting out in her summer, speaking to my son, closing out in fall, saying, I was there. Well, it was only 3 or 4 years ago, but listen, she's really close to the time where she remembers going through that exact same thing at 15, this exact same circle thing, this exact same, what college should I do this, and all the tension and tenuousness of that, and she gives out of the summer. But here I sit in the fall looking back on the 20-year-old, looking back on, and you can see the magic now that they don't see. You can see the innocence now. You can see the grace and the room for setback and failure that at the time it just felt like everything. But you in the autumn, look, there's going to be many ups and downs and swings and misses. And that's a beautiful season of life. And now you have the joy of watching generations behind. Connie and I do, while also planning for and dreaming of the season ahead. What are we going to look like in our fall? How will we in our fall look like for preparing for our winter? And then winter, the most regal and stately season. Defiant in the cold. The bared branches, signals and sentinels, a declaration of a flowering past. Deep roots that stand against the storm. Looking down those stark branches with hoary wisdom, right? The wisdom, the Hebrew Scriptures, the wisdom of the gray head. The glory of the young man, the Hebrew Scripture says. The glory of the person in spring and summer is their strength, but the glory of the person in fall and winter is that gray head. Winter, with the beautiful simplicity of appreciation. With a will to remain in the land of the living, to live and give and watch over, but no longer with a season in the living to plan, thriving in that season, but not fearing, not hastening, but also not fearing, not welcoming, but also not trying to block out of the mind that day of rebirth. Where are you? These are not hard numbers, 15, 15, 15. These are seasons. And here's the thing. They can snap ahead. You can think I'm in spring and then very quickly winter. We know that that happens in life. We can also find unexpected resurgence of springtimes, that surely we thought this was over and now a spring has come back again. My time for falling in love, my time for building a family has passed, and then love comes again. I mean, there's all sorts of resurgences that go on. But when we talk about our striving and we talk about our season, we first sit and say, where am I in the season of life? And when you recognize where you are, spring, summer, winter, or fall, it gives you a strategy. You can't dictate to the season. You can't control which way the tree falls. You can't control when the bread comes back. But it tells you in this season how to operate, how to read the terrain, where to hang on tighter and where to let go and relax a little bit more so that you can, in your season, believing to see and be goodness, channel and focus that striving. Will there be success? I don't know. But the daring greatly is the richness. The taking off the glasses to see, to notice, my God, this is where I am, and pay attention as spring closes out to its beauty, because you will get to autumn and think, wow, man, if I had, and that's why everybody in autumn tells everybody in spring, man, you need to relax and enjoy, man. You need to just relax. Oh my gosh, you're so worked up. Girl, you're just beginning summer. Boy, you're just beginning summer. You need to relax. If I could go back to summer, I would go back to summer 13 going on 30 with so much ease now that I know. But there's certain things you just don't know. But you can let the season of the winter and the fall be the hindsight of the winter and the fall, be the foresight for the spring and the summer. And so in my house, I have spring, I have summer, I have autumn, and my Father, I have winter. And we glean from that patriarchal wisdom. We glean as I freak out and think, my God, Dad, I'm losing everything. I'd be homeless on the street here if something doesn't turn around. And God, and I don't know, maybe Pop, you might have to go move here, you move here. I'll try to get us back together as we deal with it. And he says, son, I've been through all of those seasons. They don't last. You go through it, you come out of it. There's joy even in the middle of it. Some of the worst times we ever had, we had laughter in the middle of that, because remember, laughter and mourning, they're not coming out of two spouts. They're coming out of that vanilla chocolate swirl spout. The dancing and the sorrow, they're all in the same spout. And he said, and you come out and say, well, we went through a 7-year season where we didn't know, and we had eviction, and we didn't have this, and we went through that, and then we came out on the other side. So the winter, standing tall and stark, reminding that I've lived your fall, I've lived your summer, I've lived your spring, and gleaning that wisdom to pass on down to, that now is the wisdom and the beauty of the seasons of life. That now is my signal that it's time to go. We'll pick up with this next week. Listen, if you are tuning in and you say, wow, I'm getting fed by this, then I encourage you to support us financially. So I click off here. I don't want to hear this. Well, just don't click back on. This is it. This has been prepared for you, given to you. And I know we live in a place where, but I should just be able to turn on the internet at all times and people just give me stuff nonstop. Well, that's not how this works. If you say this is touching and restructuring my inner life and moving me to a richer outer life in my season, then have the decency, have the sense of honor to say, hey, I want to support you and your family. I want to thank you. This is a thank you for what you've given me. That's how this church works. Churches are divided into two different parts. We have the part that's for you, which is this individual family, maturity, discipling, and growth. And Connie and I give that to you. And we thank you for thanking of us. That if you're getting value out of it, communicate that value. But then most churches, they got programs and they got buildings and they got seats and they got needs and crackers and orange juice and parking lot cones and all that kind of stuff. We have none of that. What am I supposed to do with all the money and the volunteer hours that I put in my old church now that I'm in your church? Go out and find suffering in the world and ease that suffering. Take that same energy, that same resources, that same vows, take all those things and go out. So, well, I'm glad I'm out of that religion. You're not out of that religion. You're just not channeling it towards an institution. You're bringing it out into the world. Why? Because we don't have a private religion here. We don't have an opt-in religion. We have God religion. We have true religion. Everybody's already in. Everybody's caught up in what is going on. There may just not be awakened to the fact that we're all caught up in it. And if you're awakened to the fact that God is everywhere among everyone, already everybody you think doesn't have God already has God. Everybody you think we need to bring God to, God's already there. And if you go out bearing that, that's what makes you a spiritual person, that you embody that love of God out everywhere you go. And wherever you see people, you bring dignity. Wherever you see suffering, you purpose to ease it. And you put your true religion and you manifest it that way. And we thank you kindly for being that part of this great church. Peace, health, protection, preservation, soundness, abundance, aboveness. I speak, I release, I bless over each one. Lord, we believe to see the goodness from the moments to the seasons. Your blessing on your people. I give you praise. In Jesus' name. Connie and I love you. Don't forget the Life and Times of J.M. Ricketts coming up February 8th. Get the show tickets, michaelandconnie.com. It's there. And also, if you want to come to the TCO service, michaelandconnie.com or contact at michaelandconnie.com. Email us, say, I'm coming. I can't give you the address. I can't even secure the address until I know how many people are coming. We got spots picked out, but if it's more than 50, we can't go to spot A. If it's less than 10, then we can't go to spot B. So email us if you're coming. I'll see you at the show. I'll see you online. I'll see you right here for another service, TCO, same bat time, same bat channel. I took my time this week, went 6 minutes over. God bless you. You are loved.